or you want the meeting to start? Hopefully it's both. We're happy to see some brand new faces here and some that have been here before, and that really great to see good audience here, filling up the room here, so that is excellent. Welcome to the Bluegrass IIBA chapter. I am Aaron Whitberger. I am the president of the chapter. If you have not been here before and seen us, you can see the chapter leadership, scroll through there and that. So if you want to know anything more about the chapter and that, what we do and our program and that, speak to any of the board members that you see up there. So again, we're happy to have you very much. Also, we have a meeting sponsor that sponsored the meeting tonight, brought us the food and the drinks, so we want to give a very big thank you to Tech Systems. We have Trey Head and Morgan Newton here from Tech Systems. You guys want to say anything?
Sure. How's everybody doing today? Good. So, I'll be brief. Obviously, we're not the reason why we meet, but we can be a part. We can be helpful. So we're from Tech Systems. Some of you may be familiar, others may not. But we're an IT staffing and services company. Our office is based out of Louisville, but recently we've grown more of a presence here in the Lexington market. So we're looking to expand here. We've done work at places like Lexmark and Toyota. And thanks, appreciate the plates. And something places like that for a long time, but we're here in Lexington now and trying to grow our presence here. So obviously where we fit in all this is the companies are looking to attain the top talent, and groups like this help hone those skills, and technical professionals like yourselves, some that are now and some that will be or kind of in the process, are looking for consistent employment. So that's our job, is to help do those type of things. So appreciate you guys letting us come out and be part of the event tonight. And if you have any questions, you can let Trey or I know, and we'll be around here in the market. You see us around.
Thank you. So thank you very much. Also, you were handed a packet as you registered today. You will see that we have a very strong relationship with the local PMI chapter that hone those skills for project managers. And so we collaborate with them. In fact, we are planning a meeting that we hope to have in January, where we will have a combined meeting with the PMI chapter and discuss the certifications that both organizations offer in that, because the PMI just came out with the business analysis certification, so we wanted to show you and tell you how both of them are marketed and that there is space for both of them in the marketplace. Also, you were handed out the nice little sheet with the 5 little orange circles on it. BBC happened last week, or a couple weeks ago, actually. Building Business Capability is the annual official conference of the IIBA. It was in Fort Lauderdale. I had the privilege of being able to go this year for the first time, and it was a wonderful event. It was a great learning and networking experience. Really enjoyed it, although you're kind of going full blown for 3 or 5 days, and then you got to come home to rest. But at BBC, IIBA announced their new 3-year strategic plan, and this is the one-page highlight, the overview based on the 5 pillars of the new strategic plan. And what we've seen this past year is just a renewed support for chapters. So we have a new president and CEO. We have a new executive vice president of chapters and membership. We have a new chapters and volunteers administrator. So where we had 1 person, we now have 3 people doing the work to support chapters. Even in this, immediately after BBC on November 10th, they sent this out as a communication to chapter leaders. And there was a full presentation, which we don't have time to go over tonight, but you know, all about the more detailed plan behind this. But I think this gives you a real nice overview of what the IIBA intends to do. Collaborative chapter model is one of those, and I must say that we have 6 chapters here in the Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky area. We have Louisville, just an hour west of us. Cincinnati is the hub of that. You know, there's Louisville and us down here, Cincinnati's in the middle, and then there's 3 of them up north of Cincinnati. But it makes a very strong network of chapters, and we use each other. We collaborate with them. We've had 2 speakers come through and speak at all 3 chapters because we speak, or we have our meetings on 3 consecutive nights in the 3rd week of the month, the Tuesday, Wednesday, and the Thursday. So we've had speakers come through and speak at all 3 chapters. We call it trifecta. They took the trifecta trip. So we look forward to doing that again. But you didn't come here to hear me talk and that. But again, you want to know anything more about the chapter and that, these are the lady and the gentleman to talk about and can tell you all about the chapter and that. We do have chapter elections coming up, so 4 of our board positions will be coming up for elections in the spring. We are planning for that and looking for people to bring new blood to the leadership of the chapter. So if you're interested, speak to any of us. We also have other chapter leadership positions that are not board positions in that, but they are leadership to help us run the daily operations of the chapter. So again, if you're interested, please speak to any of us. We'll be happy to talk to you and let you know what is available and what's coming available. All right, so again, thank you all for being here. Love that we filled the room in that. So without any further ado, let me introduce our speaker for tonight. Baisha Roberts is from Alltech. Alltech is a company in the biotech and the animal nutrition area that operates in 128 countries. And they have facilities in, what was it, China, here in the U.S., and I forget the third one.
You can go on and on.
She'll tell you about that.
128.
So she certainly knows how to deal with those differences in culture and laws and time zones and that. And that's what we will hear this evening. So, Ms. Roberts.
We need to do a little bit of sound checks, and also from your camera, I'm assuming you're going to be here. Do you have any problem? You can tell I've done this before. Do you have any problems capturing pop here? Do we need to move those to the other end? If we post it with pop showing, that might be what anybody watching is
It's not alcohol.
Right. Then we can make it more interesting. Okay, and then let's make sure we know which buttons are moving forward. Okay. And then the mic is on. Testing 1, 2, 3. Is it on? Okay. Good. Well, we often say that through life, including our business life, we can do a lot of different things. And how did I come about to get into the global work? Well, after 20 years of running my own business and doing work in the United States, 25 states, I started mentoring young women at the UK College of Business. And then I was speaking to the honors group, and what I heard from everyone wanted to graduate and work globally. So it was about time to reinvent my company. Being over 20 years in the tech business, you have to reinvent yourself about every 5 to 7 years. It was time to reinvent myself. I was praying about what to do. I had not had a resume in over 20 years. I paid a national company to redo a resume, and I received a new resume in the morning, and one of my customers, being Alltech, called me Friday afternoon, not knowing any of this was going on, and said, we need someone with your skill sets to help us. We are trying to roll out Microsoft AX ERP globally, and we need help. Oh, well, I believe I'll go talk to them. So it was a very short story. Within 2 weeks, I was hired, and I have gone in with this title of business analyst, but obviously having all the skill sets that you get from being an engineer to doing accounting systems to managing people to being an entrepreneur, working in a very entrepreneurial business, being Alltech, I have worn many hats over the last year and a half. So let me kind of go over, I have found, especially for the younger and all of the students we have here that may not have been in the work world, the global market is fun, it's interesting, it is challenging, but it is very enjoyable. So I would encourage any of you here to think about that. So I've challenged this, I've named it interesting, fun, and challenging working with global teams. It is all of the above. So to give you a little setting, Alltech, we do have global teams all over the world in 128 countries. What I have been focused on is working on the Microsoft AX ERP rollout to 128 countries. To date, I have been the project manager for projects in Canada, Venezuela, and the United States. And I've been a functional lead, which is a title that Microsoft came up with. So let me describe to you what that means. It means that you are the one that is knowledgeable about how the software can be set up, how you can solve problems and set it up to do what you want the software to do. And when we get into other countries, we have Microsoft localizations, is what we call them. They are very specific coding that is done in the software for that country to meet tax needs, to meet HR needs, several other needs that we may have in country. As well as a functional lead in our environment works with our development team, and we have what is called functional design documents. So in this role, because I had a programming background, also I was the person that would review all of the functional design documents to see were they written correctly. Could we find a way to do those without spending money for customizations? If we decided that we needed to write those, then I would be the interface to the programmer to make sure that we could get those done. So worked for about 5 months on projects in Chile, Argentina, Peru, India, Dubai, Russia, Thailand, and France. We often laugh at Alltech and say that we go around the world every hour. So those of you that may have a little bit of technical background, you will enjoy this. We do use Microsoft Link. In every hour, we are in meetings with people all over the world through telecommunications, sharing our presentations, sharing our documents, talking, making decisions, designing code, just all types of things that we're doing every hour. So we often say, well, we go around the world every hour while we're sitting in Nicholasville, Kentucky, at Catnip Hill. They will say, oh, where are you located? Catnip Hill. So we have some fun with that. The other thing that we worked on at the end of last year, there were a couple of us that had been recruited to help get us organized and how can we roll out to so many countries. You know, are we going to be 10 years doing this? No, we can't be 10 years doing this. So I led a group of about 6 committees globally that we worked on what we called a repeatable model, something that we could put together that we could duplicate over and over and over again. So we determined we had 7 forms, sales invoices, free text invoices, packing slips, that we used everywhere. So we worked as a group globally to put the spec together to get something that that old 80-20 rule, 80% of every one of those forms would be the same. Then I developed a functional design document for each one of those so that the team leads globally could pick those up for those 6 that we do over and over and over again, put in a few changes that they needed for the local country. The programmers knew exactly, this is all blank, I don't have to do anything. If I see something in these tabs, I need to do something. It made us very efficient and quick and fast, and made us where we could do more countries. So we actually found that we were taking what had sometimes taken as much as 6 months to roll out a country. We put that into a 90-day window with multiples going on at the same time. So being organized and looking at things ahead of time. We also put training modules together and how we could do that. So that's where we've been. I love this statement. Yes?
Can I ask how you handle the language differences?
I'm going to speak about some of that. So hold that thought. If I don't answer your questions, ask more, okay? Successful business analysts. I really like this, so look at this while I read it for those that are visual. The most successful business analysts are the ones who blend the temperament and communication savvy of a diplomat with the analytical skills of an intelligence officer. So I often tell people, business analysts, you are not directly managing anybody on your team. But yet, you have a team of people from accounting and finance, from operations and manufacturing, sales, marketing, every department you can have on your team. No one directly answers to you, but you must persuade them to do what you need them to do. So that's where that diplomatic part comes in. And then the intelligence officer. I'm going to talk about some of this because you have to ask questions and dig and ask more questions, because sometimes the first thing you're told is not exactly the whole story. So it's very, very important, and I think this is just very, very good analysis of what we need to be successful. So differences on a global team, and some of the things that I'm going to talk about tonight are the different languages, time zones, cultures, holidays, local slang, labor laws, taxes, transportation, and shipping. When I started this, I think I would have known all of these things, except this one's a little surprising, but it's been a big, big thing. Somebody tell me what that date is.
Depends on what country you're in.
We can okay, in the back. What's that date?
August 9th? No, September 8th.
Yeah, September 8th.
Is this August 9th or September 8th?
It depends on where you are.
According to where you are. So whatever country you're in, if you are leading a group, this can become your very first challenge. So dates and holidays, and I apologize for those in the back, this is a little small, but the very first thing when you start working with a global group, make sure when you are communicating, typing, writing, that you actually spell out the name of the month, the day, and the year. Because then your global team will all be showing up to your meeting on the right month, on the right day. Otherwise, that might not be true. The other thing where that becomes very important is when you are working on development, forms that will be used in country. If you do not make sure that you know what date format is used, you might get down the road and have several different, another past partner in work person here. So you could get down the road and have lots of development done and forms done and have the wrong date. That becomes very ugly during the go live, and you have the wrong date.
Did you have a lot of people who looked at
the week number as well as the day number, so they might say, I was delivered to you on day 254 or week 37? 'Cause we've run into
We
that.
don't, we have not seen that as much. Usually you might, from my other experiences, that would be more in the manufacturing arena where they use those. We manufacture, but it's not like the automotive industry, which I've spent a lot of time in, and that would be something more that we would see in the automotive industry. So, look up the country holidays you're going to be working with. Now, from my experience, what happens with us a lot, we have the country that we are going to be working in. So I will just pick Venezuela as an example. We have Venezuela project. On that team, we have people from the United States, we have people from Peru, we have people from Brazil, and we have people from Mexico. So we know, okay, we need to look at the holidays going on in Venezuela. We sure don't want to plan a go-live date for our project on one of their holidays. But also we need to look at our whole team. If we're flying in members from Peru and Brazil, we need to make sure we're not trying to fly them in on some holiday that's very, very important to them. So usually when I start a project, these are some of the first things that I go, oh, I like to go to that are very, very good at it. And I'm gonna pop back, anybody done a project in Canada?
Yes.
On the date? Canadians are very confused about their date formats. Did you find that?
Yeah.
They have, well, 2/3 of the country uses one date format and a third uses the other. Microsoft AX chose to use the European format for all of Canada, where Alltech has our corporate office and the majority of our offices uses the US date. So this became a very big thing that you would think, why would we need to talk so much about a date? This is very, very important in a country that can't even decide what date format.
Well, in a country that used to have 12 different language translations on a cereal box too, so.
So, and Ireland has the same problem in that we actually had to set up a Canadian language to get the date right in, I think it was North Ireland, because North and South Ireland uses different date formats too. So you must ask these questions. Ask the local users to make a list of days that they will not be working during your project timeline. Well, obviously we've talked about the holidays, but there are other days that certain countries have, and remember that they're always on holiday. They don't have vacations like we do. So their vacations are called holidays. Their holidays are called holidays. So you have to make sure you're getting this straight. But get that up front. The other thing which I have on here somewhere is to ask, how about the company's events? This is a very big thing at Alltech. We have to look at our events. We have lots of marketing events for our customers and potential customers that we pull everybody to work on. So if we know there's an event coming up in our 90-day window, we have to adjust for that, because we know that 2 weeks before that, we will not have people focus on the project at all. So,
have you also had things like your go-lives had to be planned around mail drops and things like that, so that, no?
No, we don't have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, that could potentially be if you were a marketing company, you would have to put on that. But the events, we've had a few countries that we found out that, just the whole country shuts down for a big event. So don't try to fly in. You can't even fly in. Communicate the U.S. holidays to the project timeline too. Remember, while we're trying to learn from them, they need to hear from us too. Be prepared to work on the U.S. holidays to make their projects go live. I mean, obviously, if you have 4 and 5 countries and you're looking at you would never get your work done. Now, there's a reason I'm going to talk about later why this happens. It's because we as Americans, We're the worker bees. We'll work whatever hours it takes to make it happen. I guess we love to talk about how much we work and how we make it happen, because we'll work on our holidays to make someone else's go live happen. Do not expect that from many other countries, because it will not happen. I think we've covered all that. The time zones. Planning the conference calls with the stakeholders in the different time zones. I asked that right up front because many countries are just like us. You start a project and we're on daylight savings time, but we're going to change. Europe's daylight saving time change happens in the fall, a week before it happens in the US. So normally we're 5 hours difference, but for a week in the fall, it's 6 hours difference for our corporate office. In Latin America, which is South America, but we call it Latin America. Everything's Latin America at Alltech. We have a very crooked line with the time zones. And like Argentina, they refuse to have a split country with time zones, so it's very crooked. Then they refuse to have a whole hour of change of time, so they fluctuate on half an hour time change. So you need to ask this up front. Let's talk about time zones. What are we on today? If we're looking at this window for our project, what changes will we have? And how do they relate when you have so many people from so many different countries involved? Okay, covered that. Oh yes, find a good website that will calculate these. I am very good at math, always have been, but it is very difficult to keep up with all of the time differences. So find a good website that will calculate it for you. You're looking at a certain time and you want to look at these, you know you have people on your project in these countries, you can put it in, you can find, okay, that time will be this, that time will be this. Okay, that would work out good. And now, obviously, we as a company use Microsoft Outlook, and many of us are on there, but not all of our employees and all of our facilities are within our main domain to use that. So, and you may work with companies that do not have that to help you. Languages. Okay, determine the language to be used for the meeting, for the conversation and the communications. We at Alltech have a company policy that if you're going to be a manager in any country, you need to speak and write English. But once we get past the managers, we can have a lot of workers that do not speak, read any English at all. So this has been an interesting thing. We have at the corporate office, we will usually have a group of any language that can interpret for us. We have learned over the years who those people are. Then we will find out when you're talking, when you're starting your project, I actually just ask. And I use the humble approach. And I usually start off trying to make it funny. I will say, hi, I'm Baisha Roberts. I will be leading your project, and I only speak Southern English. And most of our employees know about Nicholasville, and they've heard. And so I will say, so let's talk about the different languages and what everyone speaks. And you know, I'll ask them once they will usually, because I start out with a group of managers, they'll say yes, they can speak English, and so then I will joke with them about, well, can you understand Southern English? And so I really make it fun because I don't want them to be intimidated. What I have found is that usually they will read English well. Some can write it well, but them understanding and being able to communicate, that's a whole different level. Then I have to make a decision once I interview the group. Will all of the meetings be held in English, Or will I choose to have a Spanish translator and we'll conduct meetings in Spanish? So those are decisions that you have to, as a leader, determine what we're going to do. What I have experienced, and this is a personal experience, is that most of the groups that I have worked with, except maybe one or two, they have chosen for us to do the meetings in English, and I liked their attitude. They said, oh good, I can practice my English. And what has been really fun is working with the groups, and after 2 weeks it is amazing how much their English, verbally, how much it has improved. After 2 months, it is, and I will compliment them. I will say, remember you told me you were excited about improving your English. It is so much better. I just love it. And so take it to be a good thing rather than a negative thing, and turn it around to be a positive. And I still hear from some of my past projects, and they will communicate with me just sometimes to practice their English because they aren't getting those experiences now. So I guess what I will tell you, do not feel bad if you don't speak another language, or if they're doing the meeting in English because of you, because they can see a positive.
When you're doing
Yes.
your meeting, when you're setting up these meetings, do you send out an agenda ahead of time?
I do.
To give them a heads up.
Communication is key. I always send an agenda out, and I always follow up with a written meeting summary. Now, why do I do that? Because I never know for sure how much everyone in the group understood of the English being said. I also, which we'll talk about some of the slang, you really have to think about what you are saying. What comes out naturally here and everyone in the room would understand will not be, and I have some examples later to share with you. But one of the best examples I have on that is I was working with a group, and I said something about, well, I really want this project to be a model project that everyone in Latin America can follow. And what they heard was model, and then they think a model, like a fashion model. And so they just could not piece together what I was talking about. But we had worked together enough that we were all able to laugh about it. And then I started laughing with them and saying that one of our men there, that he was going to be our model when we were done. We were going to dress him up and let him be our model. So you just have to be able to take it and flow with it. What's going on. Find a translating software that works best for you. I usually do let them, if they are more comfortable communicating with me in their language via email or whatever, that's fine with me, and I will take it and translate it. Just be aware, it doesn't always translate exactly right. And if it sounds weird in translation, send it back and add communication. Because you just never know for sure. Sometimes you look at that translation and go, especially if you're troubleshooting something, don't know exactly what that means. The follow-up is key, because in case they miss something, that they can usually read English very well. Also, I always followed up, and this is with the timelines of, okay, we agreed this person was going to do this on this day. Because I never knew for sure, or know for sure, did they understand that they had this responsibility. So once we send it in writing, we have communicated verbally, we have communicated written.
Do you use a project site to do this, or do you email stuff back and forth?
With both. We have Microsoft SharePoint, and there are, like, our repeatable model is all on a shared site. So all of the documents that they need to use are there. But on the meetings, I usually send it via email, and then for a historical record, I will post it up in a folder for them. So I use both. And that's just, probably not every project manager does that, but I'm very detailed and very organized, so I like to have all my history there.
And then do you all typically have conversation threads about it if they have questions and things like that on the SharePoint site too? Because I find that's really helpful. It's almost like
well,
social media.
Usually because we have Microsoft Link,
Mm-hmm.
we use the IMing a lot
Uh-huh.
there, and that makes it a little bit more personal. We do not store our IM, but I see that as a positive because sometimes I find after the meeting they will IM me with questions. It's not before the group. It's not intimidating. It's just between us, and so we use IM a lot. Instant messaging. I think everybody knows that, but just in case. Foreign language interpreters. Let's say we decide not to do English, or there's a certain meeting, or there's a certain demo, and we need interpreters to help us. Not all interpreters are equal. So, Spain Spanish, and Mexican Spanish, and Venezuelan Spanish are different. I mean, just like if we think about English in New York compared to English in Alabama or Texas compared to English in Great Britain. So, I have learned with our group that as I've experienced it, the different people that are better interpreters for different countries or for different things that I'm doing. My best example is when I was doing the Venezuela project. I had someone on the team that was from Mexico, and I had another person that was originally from Venezuela but had been in the U.S. for 20 years. And so I started out with the person from Mexico translating for me. And I noticed that they would talk for what seemed 5 to 7 minutes, and then he would give me like 1 to 2 sentences, and I'm like, okay, this just couldn't be. So I then got Cesar, who was originally from Venezuela, and I said, would you help me translate, because I just don't feel like I'm getting the whole story. Well then, I mean, I knew I was getting everything. You know, they would talk for 5 minutes, I would get 3 to 5 minutes back in English. So these are things you experience and you find, and I have determined if I have someone who's listening to 5 to 10 minutes and they're just giving me 2 sentences, that's not the translator I want. Because remember, we need to be very investigative. We need all of the details. That we could definitely be missing something. Some of the, like when we're looking at software in country that might be a third-party add-on, sometimes you find that they have no one to do a demo of that in English. So what do you do then? So this becomes very complicated. My approach has been to get in-country people as well as our corporate people, and so I usually I usually prepare a list of feature sets, which we normally do anyway. So we'll have our feature sets, and I will actually ask them to complete my list so that I have documentation, and I will usually send those individually. I don't have them to do it collectively because I want to see if they all tell me the same thing. So when you get it from the finance person, who's one place, the operations person another place, your local maybe project manager, and they all send it to you individually because they're in different offices. If they match, I feel good about it. If they don't, then those are my questions that I go back to the group and to the software company to say, I'm getting some mixed messages here. And very often the software company will take my English, translate it, and then send me a Spanish answer back that then I translate. And keeping that history is very, very important because I had a software company that committed to me some things about a piece of software that we purchased. And then later on I found out they sent the wrong version. And they at first told the people involved, before I got involved, that, oh, they had told us that up front. But I had the documentation, written documentation, where I had sent the questions and I had the answer back. So I had documentation that we had provided what version we were on. They had answered back what version, that they understood that, and yes, they had it. So where they would have probably wanted to charge us more money, they said, oh, you're exactly right, we won't fix it. Those are the things that save your company money, okay? Let's see here. Oh, I have another funny story. This sometimes happens. You get one of your coworkers who speaks another language, and you go, okay, I need you to call this company or this location because no one here speaks English. So I went and got one of my coworkers to call a vendor, and so I'm with him, and he dials the number, and I hear them, speaking Spanish because he had it on speaker, and he forgot to speak Spanish. He spoke English, so they hung up on us. And we just started cracking up. It is very easy. I've learned that now working with many people who speak different languages. Sometimes they just forget what language to come out of their mouth. So we had to call back. And I laughed and told my coworker, I said, I could have done that. So think about, this is something I really try to think about when I have that mixed group. When I'm talking, trying not to use slang, U.S. slang, but sometimes in the heat of the moment, it will just come out. And usually, if we have a group of us together, someone else will catch it. And we just usually take it then and describe what it means in the U.S., and laugh about it. But that's a no-brainer decision. What does that mean if you are not from the U.S.?
It sounds insulting.
Right. What do they mean? Okay. Sign your John Hancock right here. What? They want me to write John Hancock? Why would they want me to write that?
Who's John
Right. Can we have a rain check on that? Rain check. What kind of check is it? They're asking for money? Do they want a check? That is a pork barrel project. Few countries will know what that means about a lot. Well, because we sell a lot of supplements, they start thinking that it's something to do with our pork products. Is it a pork supplement that comes in a barrel? So, you just really have to think about these things and they're already trying to understand English and conversationally. And then if we throw in a lot of this, we need to go back to the drawing board. Are we going to draw pictures? Let's cut a deal. Sometimes some countries know what we're talking about. Others are like, cut. What about scissors? And then I told you about the model project thing. We had fun with that. Now, I'm going to be very candid, and I just want to tell you right now, this is from Basher Roberts. This is not coming from the company that I work for. I'm here on my own time. I really had wanted to be very candid with you, and I know some of you have experienced this. We had spoken about several of these things just within our department and teams, but then I started talking to other people and other teams working on totally different things, and it seems like we're all having the same experience. So I just want to qualify that these are my personal comments and personal thoughts about cultures. South America, Latin America. First of all, the relationships are very, very important. Expect to socialize a little before working. So if you are working with people from South America and you have a meeting and you just jump right in like us Americans often want to do, your project probably is not off to a good start. So they want to get to know you, they want to trust you, so spend some time, every meeting that I ever start with South Americans, we spend at least 5 minutes laughing or talking about our family or something personal. I found that my South Americans will not answer a question in a group setting. They're very polite. So, if you're leading a meeting and they're all on the phone or in the room or whatever, and you go, "What do you think about this?" There will be silence. But if I say, "Carlos, what do you think about whatever the question is?" and direct that question directly to them, they will answer. They're listening, they're involved, they have an opinion. Once one person has a spoken opinion, the whole group will speak to it. I don't have to ask individually anymore. I have found that to be a very interesting dynamic. Anybody else in the room experience that? Build in some time in the project timeline. They're always like the American expectations. Very laid back. So, to manage expectations, just build in extra time. Then everybody's happy. Otherwise, you could find yourself as a project manager and business analyst frustrated, which is not good for anything. Anybody involved, the project. And while you might be sitting here totally frustrated, they would be clueless that you were frustrated that we didn't need a timeline. What's the big deal? We have time to do this.
Did you find any issues with male bravado in South America?
What their definition of done changes.
Yes, that is a very good point. He's brought up their definition of done and our definition of done are very different. So through that, we have sign-off documents and documents that have to be provided because you're exactly right. If you ask them a question and ask if they agree, you've laid out something, do you agree with that? And you expect a yes or no answer. They say yes, which we want to think, yes, they've agreed with us. But then they're going to continue in the conversation about the subject that does not support that yes answer. He's shaking his head, he knows what I'm talking
There's
about.
a lot of cultures where the yes just means I heard you.
Right. So yeah. Yes means no.
Yeah.
That's what I have found more.
Especially if they say it 3 times. Yes, absolutely. And it really means no.
Right. So, as Americans, we move fast. If you hear that yes and you quit listening, you have a problem. And that's where that follow-up documentation is very important too. Documentation from the functional design documents and the installation documents. I hear a lot. You know what? I'll be like, we need more detail, and then let's just talk about it. Very personal, let's just talk about it. Well, we can talk about it, but we must get our functional design documents done. We must get our documentation done. We must finish what we think of as the finish. So I can tell with the group with experience, a lot of shaking of the heads that we've all experienced that. Europeans, and I don't want to seem like I'm the harshest on the Europeans, but maybe I will. Some of them just don't like Americans. So that's some of the first thing we have to overcome. For whatever reason, they don't like us. They are smarter than Americans, and they don't have a clue why they need us. Why would we even be involved in this? And I guess they think they shipped all that. Their image of Americans is very probably media driven or maybe age old driven, whatever. But they think doing business in the U.S. is easy compared to Europe. Has anybody heard that 1,000 times like I have?
Yeah.
Oh, whatever country you're working in, well, this is not easy like it is in the United States. So this is my answer that I will share with you tonight that you can decide whether it's a good answer or not. I will say, well, let me ask you a question. If you were coming to do business in the United States, how would you handle federal taxes, 50 state individual taxes, multiple city taxes in all of those 50 states, multiple county taxes in all of those 50 states? How would you handle all of that? And there's always silence because they don't understand that, but in their minds, doing business in the United States is so easy compared to doing business in Europe, which personally, my experience of setting up doing business in Europe is much easier than the United States. Now, because several of us have worked in the United States for years, we know what we're doing, and it doesn't seem that hard, but they would not. I found the Europeans to be very organized, very precise. If they tell me they're going to do something, they get it done on time. I like that. Has that been a similar experience?
Depends on which country.
Yes, and it can be. It can be. But I find that they will get the project finished, which when we are leading those is very, very important. Asia Pacific, a very polite, kind, relational people. They're smart, they're computer savvy, which can be dangerous for us when we're implementing software. If there's a back door that they can find, they will find it, and you may end up with data imported or something going on that you have no idea. And they didn't bother to bring it up in the group meeting.
They will also tell you yes when they don't mean it.
They will. They absolutely will. They will tell you yes. And the other thing I found is everything is a legal requirement. If they want something to be a certain way and you ask them, well, is that a legal requirement? Yes.
That's very true in Germany.
Yes. So this is when you're that business analyst, to be the detective, you really have to do your homework because more than likely it is not. Especially most of the larger software packages that we are using when we're global, they will have localizations in country for the countries who have very specific payroll, tax needs and all of that. So Americans, we don't want us to leave out because I asked them, what is your image of Americans? Americans are demanding and expects everyone to work any amount of hours to get the job done. We work all the time. You should too. Different cultures do not work the number of hours that we do. We jump right to the point and we ask direct questions. Sometimes perceived as rude because we're sharp. We're just on focus. We're going all the time. Focus is entirely on the bottom line. It's all about the money, not the people. Focus. I have a funny story to tell about this. Alltech was looking at buying a company, and one of my coworkers told me an experience that he had. This was an American company, and he and several lawyers, high-end accountants, they were all in the boardroom discussing the purchase. And noon came, and the employees of the business knocked on the door, came in, about 3 of them, went to the end of the boardroom and said, don't worry about us, we're just having lunch and watching our soap opera. So those American employees were very focused on them, what they did every day. They didn't care what else was going on. So just an example of how we can come off to others working with us. Tax laws. That's what gets us. I mean, that's what we always have to, any system we're looking at, that's the unique part of every country. From our experience, the first source we go to is we go to our in-house staff. Because hopefully you have hired people who know their country, know their tax laws, and can give you good information. The second source is if you have a specific software you're going to be working with, or a specific set of whatever you're wanting to do, whether you're exporting, importing, producing tax forms, whatever, find an in-country expert for that software because they will know it best. I have found this to be the best money spent. When I went to Canada, when I went to Venezuela, I found a local company. I had an in-house project person, U.S. CPA, to give me an estimate to set up the unknown taxes in Canada would take her 40 hours. I found an in-country Microsoft AX expert. We paid them for 3 hours of time and everything was set up and documented.
And that was sales tax, right?
Yes,
Isn't
yes.
it? Yeah.
So, best money spent. Now, going to Venezuela, which they have tons of taxes. So that was withholding taxes, sales taxes. We purchased 8 hours of time. Still, some of the best money spent because that in-country software-specific person is going to do that job quicker and faster than you would ever think of doing. And then the software localization, usually whatever software you are using will have localizations written, they will have documentations for that, and often your partner or dealer will have someone in country, or like with Microsoft, Russia and Brazil are two of the most difficult countries in the world to do business in. I mean, their tax structures are so difficult. So there we will always go to like the Microsoft tech support people and ask them to get us an in-country person who worked on developing that software because it is very, very difficult. And then there's just the internet research. I've actually found a lot of things for in-country that in India or in Argentina or whatever that they told me was a legal tax requirement or a legal requirement for a form, and I actually was able to find it on the internet within a half an hour or so. So I'm like, well, if I can find that easy, why doesn't the in-country person know that? But sometimes it's just because they're not looking at the cost of customizing all of this. And that's what, you know, as an analyst, we're here to see what we need, but we're also here, how can we do this the best price and still do what we need to do. Tax withholding on invoices and AR and AP. This is really big when you get into Asia Pacific and when you get into South America. It is a different environment for us Americans because it can be very, what we think of as very convoluted, and I will just give you some examples. In Argentina, in Venezuela, in Peru, you have an option. If you're purchasing something and you receive the invoice and there's taxes on it, you have an option that you can pay that tax directly to the government instead of paying it directly to your vendor. Well, when you send a partial payment to your vendor, then they have to deal with the partial payment and reporting to the government that you paid the tax. They're not responsible for it. So it's very convoluted on how you have to track. There's some vendors we're going to pay it. There's some vendors we're going to pay them and let them pay it. But as a company, you must track all of this withholding and report all of that to the government. And a lot, South America is really, really starting to get all of that. They're not quite there, but the push is to get all of those countries electronically, where all of this is going to be electronically. So, this was another strange one when we were in it's a Latin American country. I can't remember which one. But there's a tax on every check that you cash at the bank. Well, what do good business people look for? They look away to not have to pay taxes, right? So when we got into that country and we're looking at handling payments, well, if it's a $15,000 bill, we might get 3 checks co-signed over from other vendors that paid that vendor that then paid us. Plus one for them for the rest of it. That confuses your brain, doesn't it? So, you will find some real, differences in country because the government's always trying to figure out what they can do to collect more taxes, and then the businesses are always trying to figure out how to avoid that tax.
So were bank transfers the same as checks for tax purposes in that case?
Yes. In that specific country. I can't remember which one it was. Now, she brings up a good point that I don't have here. Very few countries in the world cut checks anymore. U.S., Canada, Venezuela, Argentina a little bit. Most of the countries that we work with, we don't even have to create a check. Everything is electronic. So it makes us, as North America, look kind of backward. that we still cut so many checks.
And they don't use credit cards as much either.
No.
And if you go to a restaurant and they want a credit card from you, what they really want is your debit card.
Right. But they have better security than we have on those, because I personally, what we have here, I don't go there. And then we have all of the electronic integration, because you have to pick usually an in-country EDI van of some type. So finding the right one and talking to the right people and making sure that you're reporting to the government can be difficult. This is usually the biggest work that you have to do. Transportation requirements. This has been the real learning curve for me. Lots of countries, Asia Pacific, South America, we have to have the packing slips provided electronically to the government before we can let the truck leave our facility. Wow. Because if they get stopped, they have to have the paperwork with them, and then they have to look that up in the government site and make sure that what they have on board is legal, that we're paying all the taxes on it and everything. So I know we have requirements here, and we track our trucks and all that, but this just seems overburdensome. And many of them don't have a good backup plan. If the government's electronic system is down, we are down. Or we're tracking illegally, which you don't want to do. So that's a thing. The transportation piece is very, very big.
Do you do your own trucking, or you do it through a third party?
Different decisions can be made in country. We do not have our own trucking fleet. So we do not at Alltech. Our female businesses do, which is a new thing for us, that we're buying female businesses. So that's something we've just been talking about. Oh, all of a sudden we're moving from no truck fleets to now we're going to have a truck fleet. So, but usually you're going to have to experience in itself as to who and are they certified and keeping all their certifications in and making sure they haven't gone out. So that's a whole new thicket. The labor laws. I highly recommend that whoever's doing your payroll, you get a local company in country to do it. But even with that, the things as a business analyst and working on projects, you have to think about is that a lot of countries, no matter what the job is, we have to pay for hours worked overtime. So when we're looking at that project go live, I mean, we've got 2 to 5 days that we're thinking we're going to work 12, 15-hour days because we've all done it.
And that includes consulting firms too, by the way.
Yes, yes. So that's something you have to think about when you're planning your timeline in your work. Ask about availability of employees. If they work overtime, what's the cost? Because that's going to be part of your project cost. Their emails may be turned off during the non-work hours, so don't expect them to be working off after hours. That's a law now in a lot of countries. We've said that maybe some of us in the U.S. wouldn't mind that happening. You must pay them if their cell phones are on 24/7 in a lot of countries. So that's all happening now. When I was in Canada, I mean, there's other countries do this. You have a staff member that's a key and they're going to have a baby in the middle of your project, and guess what? They're going to be off for 1 to 2 years with a guarantee they have a job when they come back.
1 to 2 years?
1 to 2 years.
You are so moving Canada, aren't you?
In Canada, the government pays 60% of your salary government tax money for the time. But, you know, those are things you have to think about and ask, because I was in the middle, I found it out just by chance. I didn't know to ask it. Luckily, during the lunchtime, we were all talking and it came out. And I'm like, what?
So it's not that way in Catnip-Till or wherever that is?
No, it's not that way at Catnip-Till.
Have you ever asked about, you know, vacations and holidays and gotten all that done, but you didn't specifically ask if anybody was going to be going on maternity leave, and you couldn't see them because they were on the phone, and then suddenly they're gone.
Well, that's the reason earlier, you know, I like to ask, what are those time off, hoping that they're going to tell you.
They are doing this now for paternity leaves and adoption.
Yes, yes. So it's going to be interesting. And this is like a working hours thing. You need to remember that transportation in every country is not like here. So in some countries, the users need to leave the office by a certain time to get the transportation. It's a train or a bus, and it only runs a certain time. Also, there are a lot of countries that we would not want our employees out at a certain hour because it's unsafe, so you need to think about that. But we've already talked about the working hours are limited. Some union labor type of organizations and countries just come in unexpected and announce to the company that their people are taking off. I had this happen. Venezuela project, we had an inventory that was supposed to be done in a 2-day cycle, and we had to count everything, and whatever they call their group there, they're not called labor unions, but it's very similar. They came in the morning and announced that everyone in the warehouse was going to take off for 2 days. Managers had to drop what we had planned for them to do so they could take inventory. That set us back 2 days in the last week of the project. Obviously, we didn't make her go live, but totally unexpected. So you just never know what could happen. So I had hoped we would have some time for questions, but I'm here for any questions. But you know, successful projects, it's the communicate. It, you know, no matter what language, no matter how many countries, it's so important to make sure that the communication is there. Asking the right questions, lots of questions, communicating back, written form, project plans, and all of that. So open for questions.
Yeah, I know you said you had, they just set back 2 days. I know, because I always say, my thing is be prepared for the unexpected. How was you able to get back, you know?
Well, what we had to do, a very good question. We had to bring all of the parties together. We weren't even sure that it was just 2 days. That's what we thought it was going to be. And you have to be able to adapt. Where you go, okay, we know we're going to lose at least 2 days. It might be 3 or 4. So what is our second plan? So we had to actually extend our go live from the first of the month to knowing that we were not going to be able to ship or invoice for another 2 to 3 days. So we knew it would affect our business, but it was something that had to happen because you are committed in the last week. There's no backing out. And there are several times and several projects that we've had to, that Americanism back up and punt, which lots of people in other countries would not know what we're talking about when we say that. But you just have to get the group together and make sure you have the in-country people and make sure you're communicating with your salespeople. I usually try to communicate with the salespeople 2 to 3 months ahead of time to let them know that we want to cut off sales early, you know, the last week. So that gives them time to plan to get their sales in so that they're not short on money. And so, once again, if you communicate correctly, I've never had any salespeople upset with me in a project because they were delayed and had to wait into a new month for their sales commissions.
Oh, I did want to say thank you so much for doing this. A couple of the students that unfortunately had to leave, they're right now taking a class about global teams. So this has been really good for them, and I know they'd be in here asking a lot of questions if they didn't have to go take the conference.
It is a great experience. You're never, I often say you're never too old for new experience. So just go for it, and it's been a great learning experience. And yes.
So are you doing, as far as the Dynamics implementation, are you doing that in all 128 countries, or where are you all in the process right now of the implementation?
We have over 40 countries. We will not take all of them because some of those are regional and just sales offices.
Yeah.
But our first year, we made sure we had all of our manufacturing facilities done. We have all of our larger distribution countries done. And so now we're doing more of our smaller distribution sites.
Okay.
And buy as many, if you're from this area, you know, buying feed mills very fast and quick.
I was wondering if you were involved with the World Western Games in France or Kentucky. I wouldn't think so, but...
We did have a team that went to France from Kentucky. We had, I would say there was, and this is just a guess on my part because there were a lot of people gone, somewhere from 30 to 40 people. Most of our staff from Europe staffed it, but we did have certain team members. The team that I'm on, were not pulled from the ERP project because we have lots of work yet to do.
Yes. Do you have any advice? But I feel like I'm a future business owner. So, do you have any advice for me?
You know, one thing I will say, having been a business owner for over 20 years, women very often do not value themselves enough and charge enough. That was never a problem that I had. But I found a lot of, I've been active for over 20 years in the National Association of Women Business Owners and served nationally on boards and was a local president and served on the board many times. And I often found as I worked with women business owners that they didn't value themselves enough. So my words of advice to women business owners are be as good or better than your competitors. Make sure you know what they're charging and charge the same or more, and you will be successful. So
So I have a question. I'm probably the only person in the room that is not working towards a business degree or worked in some type of business organization. What is a female company as opposed to a male company?
It's a very good question to ask. What is a female company? Usually a female-owned company is where either that you have multiple female owners, such as law firms or CPAs, or if you're an S Corp or a C Corp, you may have stock owners that's 50% or more women. I actually, maybe the better question, a lot of times is what the difference in a woman-owned business and a veteran-owned business and a family-owned business. And so we chose early on, although ours was a family business, but we chose early on because I was the technology person that I would own 51% of the stock. So I was raised in family businesses, and being in family businesses, when families are involved, it's always a group, discussion and decision making and all of that. So, but women business owners have created more new businesses, have a longer life of the business, and I think that's because women are more conservative financially. So their businesses typically are smaller, but they usually are in business longer, because most businesses, new startups, will not make it. It's 2 years or under. Did I answer it?
I think so, because you had mentioned earlier that you had started purchasing female businesses, and that's what I was asking about.
Well, not purchasing them, but advising them.
Advising? Okay.
Yes. A lot of females who start businesses versus males who start businesses is what I was going to.
Okay.
And quite often there are tax advantages, or there could be scholarships or something available to either women-owned or minority-owned or veteran-owned companies and that. So.
Okay.
I hope to see you in about, 4 or 5 years, and you tell me you have a successful business.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get up and running by the end of the year.
All right. Other questions?
We just have one question about Alltech. The instances that you're putting, is this all one system? So can you pull the reports on every place you've gone from?
That is a very good question, and we share this globally, so I don't think I'm sharing anything that anyone would care that I share. And for the group that doesn't know, when we set up Microsoft AX, we have what we call instances, and within that instance, we can have multiple countries. Because we are global, and because of the time zones and the need to add lots of code promotions and changes, we have chosen to have multiple instances. The company before I got there tried to do one, and it just doesn't work.
Well, Microsoft releases different versions at different times too. Like they release the Asian localizations behind everything.
So we have chosen 4. Well, our goal is 4. We actually have 7, which is a story in itself. But when people hear that, they're just like, no, company would support 7, but we actually do. So we found that we did not want to disrupt daily business in one area while we were promoting code. So it did not make good business sense to us. We do share code bases among those instances, which can be a challenge because we have some Microsoft localizations in with VAR customization with our own customization for multiple countries. That's a challenge. And sometimes that works great, and other times we're doing rollbacks because it didn't work so great.
Do you have kind of global governance as far as change management and things like that are concerned?
Yes, we do. We have a change management system. We have a schedule of when normal code promotions will happen every week for every instance. We have communicated that so that the user should anticipate what night or what evening that should happen. We have testers identified that will be the testers for that. It is, I think that is something when you get into so many countries with so many instances, with so many localizations, and so much code change, that's probably the biggest hurdle, because it is just very, very difficult to get all of those together working correctly. And then we have the upgrades to deal with, which we're looking at right now. I'm going to be working with a group on, we're looking at how we upgrade before we get finished with all the changes from the legacy system. Yes.
Question. How much travel do you must do and how much travel you can avoid?
That is a very good question. I actually negotiated that I would not travel more than 25% of the time, because I've been a road warrior before in my own business, traveling 75% of the time, certain years, and I no longer wanted to do that. So I actually negotiated that. What I have found is I haven't even traveled 25% of the time. I have become a master at managing projects from Catnip Hill. And the Venezuela project was very unique in that when the group went in to do the gap analysis, there was another person on staff that went in to do that, collected the information with another staff member, and then left before the gap was finished. So I was pulled over to get this project going. I had 60 days, the gap wasn't finished, had no functional design documents written. I had never been on site, and actually I'd only been with the company 6 months. So I did ask, and they gave me, it was the end of the year, and they did give me some experienced people that had been on other projects with me. But at the same time, we had some other members from South America that had never done AX. So we had to get this project together, get it ready to roll, and I had decided, well, I will go for the go live. I decided not to go for the training. I was going to let 2 other people fly in for the training, but I would go for the go live because I could not imagine finishing a project and not being there for the go live. And 2 weeks before I would have gone in country, Venezuela threw out 2 of the top consulate people in our embassy. And my friend who worked at Altec at the time, originally from Venezuela, came and was on the project, came to me and said, Baisha, this is not safe for you. I think too much of you, and you cannot go there. So once he told me that, I decided maybe I better not go. So, and then we had trouble getting flights in for anybody. And so I actually went to the group, which were multiple countries, and I said, okay, this is the deal. I've been told that's not safe for me. I would not blend in well, and I would be flying an American passport. So I'm not going to force anybody to go. Who wants to go or not go? And I actually had 3 people that volunteered, 1 from Peru, 1 from Brazil, which we felt comfortable with them flying on their passport. And I had 1 American, originally from Mexico, but American, flying on an American passport, that volunteered to go in. So, but he blended in. So I told him I prayed for him a lot while he was traveling, because one of my coworkers came and said, you know he has 6 children, what are you doing sending him to Venezuela? I said, I'm not sending him, he volunteered. So, but that was a project that I managed in a very difficult situation. We were only 3 days late on invoicing and shipping and trucking. And did we have to do some follow-up? We mentioned sometimes when they say the project's done, the paperwork was a little bit later. If I had been on site, it would have been done before I left. Paper was a little bit later coming in, but we did get it.
So you can, I have proven it's not the best, but you can manage a project and never be on site.